and welcome to another episode of On Public Square. We are here on the edge of a possible snowmageddon, talking about Clarksville history and books. A historic possible storm equals a historic book that we're going to be talking about. So I'm here with our director of Customs House Museum, Frank Lott, and our communications director here at the city and author of the newest edition of Historic Clarksville, Jimmy Settle. Let's just start with introductions. I'll let you introduce yourselves, and then we'll just talk for a little bit.
Well, thank you. I'll take that lead then. Frank Lott. I'm, as you mentioned, executive director of the Customs House Museum for the past 6 years, starting my 7th year as executive director. It's a dream come true to be doing this. I feel so honored. My connection with the Customs House goes back 40 years, the entire 40 plus years now of its existence, back to the very beginning when I stood on the street corner and watched the ribbon being cut to open the new museum as part of the city's bicentennial celebration. I told my soon-to-be wife as we were standing there amongst the ceremony that I wanted to be part of this somehow. I never, in that 41 years ago, dreamed I would be sitting here talking to you today as the director, but my journey's been fascinating. I've served on the board of trustees various years as a board member, as a chairman, as a fundraiser, as a marketing consultant, and my professional life for 42 years was in the marketing communications profession with my longtime business partner, Jeff Bibb. And Jeff and I were very involved civically over those years, serving in lots of capacities. Jeff was longtime chairman of the River District Commission, had a lot to do with the whole revamping of Riverside Drive, McGregor Park, and that era. My chosen civic activity was the museum, and so I invested a lot of my personal time in working with and on behalf of the museum.
Wonderful. We actually I missed working with you by a few months. I worked at the museum when I was in grad school part-time.
That's right.
I worked for, kind of split my time between Stacy and J.D. Richardson.
Right.
Working with maintenance and event staff. Loved all the people there, Terry and Randy and Miss Sue and everyone over there. The museum's always had a great team. And I know most of those folks aren't there currently, but love all those folks to death and loved working there. It was a great job for a student.
Oh, many times over. Certainly we've had great success with working with students in their years, working on their degrees, and been great still have that internship program going.
Mm-hmm. It was great as a literature student when you have a lot of reading homework and you need a quiet place to sit. What better place than in the Harville Gallery or one of the other gallery spaces to sit and do your reading? But I am very fond of the museum. Now as a dad, we have a membership because my son loves the train room and loves the downstairs playroom.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You have to come and see the trains and tell Thomas hi as we go by. He'll watch Thomas the Tank Engine and just, hi, Thomas.
It's the most popular exhibit in the museum and probably will be.
Yes, and hats off to the volunteers who keep that exhibit running.
Yeah, they're truly amazing.
We will come back to the museum in a moment. Let's also introduce our communications director and author, Jimmy Settle. Born in Nashville, Tennessee, graduated from Stewart High School in Dover, graduated from University of Tennessee at Martin in 1998 with a bachelor's with a concentration in print journalism. Jimmy, you worked at the Leaf Chronicle, and I'll let you finish this up. I shouldn't be introducing you for you.
You're good. No problem, Casey. No, I came to the city by invitation of Mayor Pitts in December of 2022. I guess it was. Time is flying by. But prior to then, I spent like 40 years roughly in local journalism. Became friends with Frank through that time, worked together on various projects, worked together on news articles. I always think about the time that we worked together on the Padhead Summit project. I've always appreciated him and his leadership in that, and that statue that's now stands at Liberty Park. But I digress. I'm just a guy that started journalism here in 1987. I was a senior in college at the time that I started. First with the Stewart Houston Times, a weekly paper that no longer exists, but it was owned by the Leaf Chronicle. And it was based there. I had an office in Dover and I had an office in Erin, and I bounced back and forth between both little counties, covering their news, which was, that's where I went to high school, as you noted a moment ago. My family is, I don't know, 5 or 6 generations on both my mom and dad's side from this area. So that's where I went to school. And, Dover basically is a bedroom of Clarksville. It's a suburb. In fact, I have a lot of relatives here in Clarksville. But I just spent a long time in journalism. One thing that led to another. Gene Washer brought me here. He was the publisher of the Leaf Chronicle. He brought me here to Clarksville in 1989. And sort of the rest is history because I really loved it here. It began a very long and rewarding career in journalism, writing for the Clarksville Leaf Chronicle, which, I guess I'm a little biased, but I really feel like when I look back at the people that I worked with there over the years, I just felt like it was a Class A operation, Class A newspaper. It still exists by name, but I kind of miss it, to be honest with you, and I won't go there. But anyway, we all kind of know. And the time came finally, and around December of 2022, where I felt like it was time to make a change, and here I am. And I've loved working here, and it's enabled me to maintain contacts in the community and do the things that I love to do. It's just kind of crossing the fence, but a lot of the work, as you know, you've been in journalism. A lot of the work is much the same, really. It's just a different perspective.
It really is. I was going to ask, what's it like from your end, moving from reporter to guy that talks to the reporters?
Well, you have to train yourself. There was an adjustment period. You have to train yourself a little bit. When you go through 40 years of being on the other side of the fence and seeing it from their perspective, to, obviously we want to be transparent in the city, but there's ways and that you do things, and doing it the right way. We're dealing with it even today, dealing with reporters asking questions about Snowmageddon that you mentioned a few moments ago, and they ask the most bizarre questions sometimes, but we're dealing with it. We work through it, and it just takes an adjustment of learning the difference sort of between raw mainstream journalism and journalism that's also sort of public relations. Yeah.
Love it. I agree. I think it gives you a strong sense of how it's like, well, this is how you should be doing that. I know how your job works, and it should go this way sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And we could talk about for hours, I think, the benefits of local journalism, but that feels like another episode, I think. Moving back to Customs House, I did want to talk just a little bit about the museum, the history of the building. How old is Customs House now? It started out, as its name suggests, as a U.S. Customs office. And it's been a post office. U.S.
Post Office and Customs House was a dual function from the very beginning. It was a combined.
Oh, okay.
A combined departments. The building dates to 1898. That's when the cornerstone was laid. It was opened amazingly and built in less than 18 months. I think maybe just a little over a year to build that building.
So 137 years, or give or take. That's impressive.
Do the math. Yeah. Okay.
It's my favorite building
1898,
in town.
127 years.
127. It's one of my favorite buildings in town. I love the roof and the all the metal architecture, and it's just such a cool building.
Very, very, very eclectic. It's a one of a kind. There is not another building like it in the United States. It's not out of a plan book. It was designed exclusively for Clarksville, Tennessee.
And that roof is getting restored soon. Am I correct?
Replaced. Yes. Now, when I say not the entire roof of the 1898 building is being replaced because of a major hailstorm we had in May 2 years ago. This coming May will be 2 years. We had a massive hailstorm, as you all know. It damaged a lot of roofs in downtown Clarksville, and ours being one that was severely damaged. That slate just it really took a hit. Of course, it was extremely old, so in that respect, we are getting a new slate roof because it's on the National Register of Historic Places, it has to be put back to comply with, what's been there all these years. So
our project manager, Brandon, was kind of walking through the process. It's impressive.
That's right. Yes.
And for those that don't know, for those that don't know, the Customs House Museum and the city are connected, even though you're not necessarily a city office or department. Can you explain? You'll be able to say it far better than I will. What's the relationship between Customs House and the city?
The Customs House is what is designated as a component unit of city government, not a department. We're not technically, neither myself nor the staff are employees of city government. Although the city and county jointly founded and chartered the museum in 1984, both of them funded the museum for many years. The city and county then divided their support between the library and the museum. I don't know if they did a coin flip, but the county got the library and the city got the museum.
I did not know that.
That happened about 25 years ago.
Well, all right.
But as I said, the city and county jointly chartered the museum. So it's founded by the city, partially funded by the city. But the museum is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And in that regard, we raise a lot of our own operating budget, roughly half.
And lots of ways for locals to support that. Go
lots
get you
of
a
ways.
membership. Go to Flying High, or Champagne and Chocolate's a favorite of mine. Or
we have something for all tastes and all appetites year round. Some fantastic exhibits coming, particularly this year, with it being the nation's 250th anniversary. We have some wonderful theme related to that national celebration. We'll be doing several articles in the Second Commerce magazine on local history. One I'm looking forward to coming up very soon is on Clarksville's connection to early Texas and the Alamo.
Interesting. That'll be cool.
Now, think many people know about that? I'll tell you, it's a fascinating story.
Oh, wow.
I'll be excited to see that. That's really cool. One of my favorite exhibits that came through Customs House, because I got to cover it, and it was just so cool, was the when that piece of the USS Tennessee vessel
USS
Clarksville.
Clarksville Victory, yes.
Yeah, so one of my favorite exhibits that came through, because I got to cover it a little bit, was the piece of the USS Clarksville and the unveiling of that and the video that accompanied it.
Yes.
That was a really cool exhibit, because I didn't know about it,
right.
And I always love to learn something new like that. It was a really cool exhibit.
Guarantee you, not a handful of people knew that even existed.
No. And if you don't, I'll put a link to some of the reporting about that in the description so you can go learn more. But as much as I would love to talk about all that, or you know what, go read it if it's in Historic Clarksville.
It is.
Perfect. What a segue.
What a segue, right.
So we're 12 minutes in. We should talk about the real topic. As much as I love we need to do an episode, Frank, on just Customs House sometime.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about Historic Clarksville. We have copies of all 3 editions in front of us right now. So pardon us, listeners, if you can hear turning pages and such. But this is a gorgeous book with a really cool photo collage for the jacket underneath, just premium binding. It's just a gorgeous book going through all of Clarksville's history, but I'll let y'all explain it. Can you just tell us what is Historic Clarksville before we really get into it?
It is truly the definitive historical document of Clarksville's 240 years, and traces it back even pre-settlement, pre-white settlement. Obviously, this was this area was inhabited by indigenous cultures for thousands of years, literally before white settlement took place. So we acknowledge some of that as much as we can. In fact, that just due to the fact that we don't have much written history of that, but we do know enough that when those first settlers came here long hunters came here beginning in the mid 1700s. In the 1750s, 60s, there was already exploration going on, and of course, this area was significantly important in the fact that the Cumberland River, even in that era, it was the interstate highway of the indigenous cultures. The inhabitants of this area could literally travel, just as we can today, to the Gulf of Mexico. And they did. And the trade commerce between here and areas that we don't think are connected are really, there's evidence of that just in terms of some of the artifacts that have been discovered and identified here. So this history and what's been so fascinating about it is those golden nuggets that have surfaced during the research that's been done over these past 3 editions. 1984, as I said, the city's bicentennial. Myself, Jeff Bibb, my business partner, we decided to undertake publishing the first edition as the official documented history of Clarksville. So the Bicentennial Commission blessed that project, and they didn't fund it. We were on our own in terms of making it happen, and we've used essentially that same model all 3 editions. We hired Charles Waters, was brought on as the first author, and you mentioned the Gallery of Commerce a moment ago. That's how this book has been funded, each edition, by selling business histories to local businesses. We would contract with them to write a history of their business, a 1-page business history, and for that they would purchase a page in the book, and it's those subscriptions, those sponsorships by them that would actually pay the cost of producing this book, so that we could then sell it to the public at a very, very reasonable price, because the cost had been absorbed by the sponsorships. In fact, I'm so proud of this that we have maintained the price of this book at $49.95 for 40 years.
Get out of here. We don't have time for inflation.
We don't have time for inflation here, but if you took the price of that book from 1984 to 2024, it should cost $155.
Okay.
But that's with the inflation factor in. But we're still selling it for $49.95. It's now 392 pages as opposed to 162 pages.
People don't know printing's expensive.
It is expensive, but we're so fortunate to have in our community one of the finest book printers in the world, and that is Jostens. So all 3 of these editions, and I'm so proud of this, and Jimmy's so proud of it too, is that every time this book's been printed, 100% of this project has been produced locally. Locally. I'm talking about every word written, every photograph taken, every illustration done, every page designed, every page printed has been done 100% in Clarksville by Clarksvillians.
Wonderful. And that's something I definitely wanted to talk about. What was it like working and coordinating that effort to keep things local? That has to add an extra challenge to the book, just trying to keep everything here low. But I mean, Clarksville's full of talented people, so maybe not. You tell me.
Well, it is. We have remarkably talented people, and it actually isn't that hard to find talented people to pull this off from start to finish, because they're out there. There were a few that I actually, worked with through the years at the Leaf Chronicle, and it was sort of like a reunion coming back to work with them on this project. I think of Robert Smith, for example, who is just an outstanding photographer, and I think of Tony Santanzi. I worked with him as well.
Oh, I love Tony.
Richard Stevens was another boss of mine for years at the Leaf Chronicle. He and his wife Jennifer were they were very integral in this process. Richard wrote a nice section, for example, about the 2010 flood, and I could just go on and on. Ellen Canervo, Manoa Uffelman, David Rands, Yvonne Kendall brought some great perspective about African American history that you'll find in vignettes throughout the book. Kevin Tanner from Austin P, Army Roads. I mean, Shanna Thornton is just a tremendously talented individual who works with Frank at the museum. And of course, she sort of heads up that Second in Commerce publication, which I love, by the way. Really enjoying that.
I do too.
And Cindy Chambers has written some very, very interesting, you alluded to one of them a moment ago about the USS Clarksville, but very interesting sidebars that appear throughout this new section. Outstanding job in the layout and design by Karen Lau. That's a very, you can't say enough about the work that goes into that, just making the thing look good, and she did. So, I mean, I say all that to say, I read down through this list, and every one of these people are local, incredibly talented. We couldn't have gone anywhere else and found anybody any better than the people that are on this list.
That's for sure.
And so that's just a credit to Clarksville, in my opinion. And I enjoyed working with every one of them. You know, my role, as I guess my title in this project was author/editor. My role was basically, of course, to have a key leadership role in writing the newest chapter, which brought the book up from 2004 until 2024, the next 20 years. That was the goal there. But on top of that, I also was involved in sort of piecing together contributions from some of the other individuals that I just named, and kind of piecing that together, editing and that sort of thing. Not that these folks required a heck of a lot of editing, because they really don't. They're great writers, but it was just, bringing it all together, making it flow, making it fit, making it read well. And that was, and that was a big part of my job as in this role. And I enjoyed it. I spent a lot of evenings, especially rainy evenings, just kind of reading through the stuff, and it just, some of the stuff that I had never heard of before just floored me. And as I said, I urge people to read it. Just you think you might have grown up here and know everything about Clarksville. Let me tell you, I grew up here, and I didn't know half of the stuff that I read until I read it, from other people's, like some of the stuff that Cindy Chambers gave us. So that was the charge from Frank when he called me that day. I'll never forget that December day in 2022. It was about around the same time that I came here to City Hall to work. Right. I was sitting over here right next door in my office, and I got the phone call, and I got to share, and I think I shared this story the night that we sort of unveiled this book at the museum in the auditorium. But basically, it was sort of like an out-of-body experience, because I had literally dreamed my whole adult life of being involved in a project like this and writing. I love history. I've always loved history. And of course, I love the written word. And I can remember looking at that first edition that Charles Waters authored, back in the 1980s. And at that time, I was still like a sophomore in college, but I can even then remember looking at that and saying, man, I'd love to do something like that someday. And so it was just like a full circle moment to get that phone call from Frank and be asked to do this. And yes, I was busy in a brand new job here and learning a brand new job. So it was a lot to undertake all at once. But when you love the written word and you love history as much as I do, there's only one answer to that question, and that's yes, I'd love to do it. And now I'm just thrilled. And obviously it's so rewarding to see the final product out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly could not ever find the more perfect person to write this book, because if you look at exactly what you've been talking about, the time you've invested here in your work in the Leaf Chronicle and covering the significant changes in this community over the past, in your case, nearly 40 years. The last 20 years have been such a remarkable evolution of this community, and
we had 100 years of history.
We knew it was going to be about growth, and that's exactly his theme, was about the remarkable growth. And there's nobody could write that better, because he had tracked it every day for certainly the 20 years that we're talking about here, but no one was better prepared to write this. And I want to thank Mayor Pitts for allowing Jimmy, on top of his new job, to also give him a green light to help with this project. And because that he was kind of balancing two jobs simultaneously during the 2.5 years it took to do this project. So it wasn't like he was working on it every day, but there were times when, I know he was able to at least accumulate, dedicate some time after hours. Most of the work on this book he was doing after hours as a second job. So appreciate that very much, and I just can't say enough about how delighted I am that I know I chose the right person to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you, Frank. Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Couldn't agree more. Speaking of this new edition, it seems every 20 years, right? What is that kind of the rule for these every 20 years?
It's just been my desire to keep the history being told. So 20 years seemed like a pretty good, gap between the two. I mean, if you think about, as you said, the past 20 years, we've crammed 100 years of history into the past 20. Yeah. We've certainly crammed 80,000 more people into this town.
I could really use
in the past 20 years. 80,000 more people in this town since we did the edition in 2004. That's like a whole nother city falling out of the sky.
It's absurd. Having grown up here, growing up in the county, to be clear, I was a Montgomery Central student out in Cunningham, but that's, I can say I'm from Clarksville. I think that's okay.
Oh, yeah. We're a one city county.
Yeah, there you go. But just seeing things change, especially having left for college and had been gone for 6 years or so. So I went away to college in 2011 and came back to Clarksville in 2017, I think, actually. And wowee, just in that time, like having been gone for a little bit and come back were things different. And I was still connected. My family lives here. I was here every weekend, but it's just wild how much things have changed since the year 2000.
Well, here's the startling thing too, if I might interject. I remember in 2019, and I was just wrapping up at the Leaf Chronicle at that time. One of the last stories I wrote over there was about a census report that the University of Tennessee Center for Business and Economic Research released for the entire state, and it had projected at 2019 that Montgomery County, I should say, would add 90,000 new residents by the year 2040. Well, we're already on pace to literally shatter that wide open. I mean, that is not even going to be close.
Right.
We're coming for you, Chattanooga.
And
nipping at their heels right now. I mean,
right. So it's just tracking that was a big part of this whole effort.
Yeah, it's nice to have a bunch of locals here too. I'm very fortunate with this podcast to get to talk with people who've lived here all their lives or who've just moved here. I've recently spoke with Lisa Canfield, our city clerk, who moved here from Sacramento, California. I believe Sacramento, from California, I know for sure. Folks who've moved here from around the world, and it's nice to get to talk with some locals too. I was just talking with some folks about like things we miss most from like growing up in Clarksville that aren't here anymore. And mine was Red's Bakery was the thing I said. I kind of missed that particular day. I'd love to have Red's Bakery.
Still miss it.
Yeah.
Twice baked potatoes.
Twice baked in a chicken breast. Miss it. Well, and of course, things are always going to continue to evolve. I mean, from the moment that book hit print, we were already, the new history was being made. I mean, think of some of the things that have just come out in the past 6 weeks since his book has been printed. Since
this book came out, Johnny's has started accepting debit cards. That's all.
Yeah, that's historic. That's historic right there. Yeah, absolutely. Well, they'll have to go in the next edition.
No.
Makes me hungry to think about it.
The largest single capital investment in Tennessee's history was announced after this book hit print.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's not captured yet, but it'll have to be in a future edition.
Exactly.
Yeah, it will.
By someone else.
Speaking of something you said, Frank, this isn't in I always make a little outline for us that kind of gives us a vague idea what we'll be talking about, but something you said about pre-colonial history and wanting to make sure that the history in this book is sort of inclusive. Has there been any, I guess like updates to go back maybe to history doesn't change, but it often gets viewed through a different lens. So I don't know who to direct this question to, but along with the new content, are there updates to the previous content in any way?
Yeah, there are a few things that we missed that we went back and revisited. And there's always going to be new things that pop up. Well, one of them, most significant, was the SS Clarksville victory. That was never mentioned in the previous two editions. Didn't know about it. Didn't learn of that until 2020. 2020. So, and there are a few other notables in there that I can't direct you to exactly where they are, but
Sure.
if you sit down and compare the two books, essentially there's some things that we went back and covered, especially in some of the little vignettes that we call word picture vignettes that we were able to then include in the updated edition. There's no way you can cover everything that you think, you're going to miss some things.
Oh, sure. I was in particular, I'm trying to think of a good example. I remember talking with Chris Smith back about a year or two ago about some new information about the Clarksville, the big fire, the historic downtown fire that had come up from some stuff he had kind of dug
fire.
out of the Leaf Chronicle archives.
Right.
And that was just something that came to mind. That's new history gets discovered, or finding the cave paintings in Dunbar Cave.
That certainly was noteworthy, and that's been covered in the new edition. Yes.
Awesome.
Some things that come to mind for me are, I mentioned a few minutes ago about Richard Stevens and his coverage of the 2010 flood, and let me just say, first of all, it's kind of one of the things that's interesting about Clarksville's history is that it seems like every era has its own natural disaster of some sort. Have you noticed that? I mean, we had the fire,
yes.
We've had the flood, we've had a couple of devastating tornadoes.
Big freeze in 1991.
Right.
We're filling out the bingo card pretty good.
In addition to his coverage of the flood, though, there was sort of a section that that paid homage to Bobby Keel, who's grew up around here, a famous songwriter. He wrote so many neat songs that became hits on the charts, and especially in country music. But he wrote a song about the flood, and the lyrics of that are included, and it's
in
really
the book.
cool.
Yeah.
And that's just an example of something different that also, in addition to telling our history, kind of pays homage to somebody who's kind of unusual and a source of pride for our community. And but we've got other things like Manoa Uffelman did a chapter that talked a little bit about some of the new nuances in how we've recorded history,
right?
Earlier Clarksville history that have enabled us to gain a little bit more understanding of some of the earlier history. And of course, she's at Austin P, and a very notable authoritarian on that.
Oh, she's brilliant.
And then you have Ellen Canerva, who talked a lot about our arts and heritage growth in that. And there's been a great number of strides in that, as you know, that have helped us stand out on the national stage that have come through the Arts and Heritage Council. So
one of those, of course, was the statue on Public Square regarding women's suffrage. That a lot of information came out in the course of doing that statue and documenting that period that were not known about who were the leaders in that role that made that happen in our area. And of course, Tennessee was the state that pushed it over the top, ratifying that amendment. So
I look at all of that, and obviously it's hard to get everything because this is such a fast growing and such a richly historic community. But I look at the balance and the totality of it, and I feel like we've got things hit pretty well in there, and that's one of the things that I'm really proud of. That we kind of, there might be cases where we have to gloss over things just a little bit because there's just so much information. We could write a book this thick if we had the time but I'm really proud of the product in that it really hits everything pretty well from the pre-civilization times up to now, and that's just one of the cool things about it. Just a neat, my parents right now have it on their coffee table right there. Of course, they're proud of me, and I appreciate that. But they also agree that it's just a good book, and they love it. So.
It is. It's what I like to think is a beautiful coffee table deluxe hardcover journey through our community.
It's the kind of book I love to have here at work on my shelf. I have I have blue books going back. I have this. It's nice to keep that local history.
And it's well indexed. So for research purposes,
Yes.
You can go to a pretty thorough index on that book.
I actually plan to use this book. Jimmy and I are planning, spoilers for those listening now, because this will probably come out right before or after we start. Every year for Black History Month, we do a series of local history social media posts.
Yeah.
So the theme this year is a century of Black history in America. And so to go with that, we were talking about doing a piece of local Black history per decade leading up through those 100 years. And this book is going to be a perfect research tool for me.
Yvonne Kendall's work on those, those special vignettes on Black history would be perfect for that.
Oh, yeah.
You might even get her up here to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. That's a great idea.
You got her. I gave you her phone number.
Wonderful. We'll definitely do that. I'll get a hold of her. That'd be great.
And of course, everyone knows and loves and remembers her mother, Miss Letty Kendall, and legendary individual in this community.
Longest serving commissioner.
Right. Longest serving county commissioner.
Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Very cool. I could talk about local history all day. I love looking into, you kind of mentioned this too, Jimmy, like sort of off the standard, celebrities or people who've accomplished things that are maybe a little odd or out there. Clarksville's home to the holder of the highest land speed record for rocket luge. I do believe there's an exhibit at the museum about it.
Billy Copeland.
We have Jeff Purvis. We have famous golf stars, famous basketball coaches. I still say that we can claim Jimi Hendrix a little bit.
Exactly.
And two world famous gold medal Olympians.
Two? Who's the second?
Wilma Rudolph and Pat Summitt.
That's right. You're right.
And I mean, if I mentioned Liberty Park earlier, if you look at Liberty Park, the beautiful thing about it is you've got Wilma's statue on one side and you've got Pat's statue down there next to the river on the other side. And I believe they call it Champions Way now.
Yes.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that we've drawn that distinction. And how many communities can say that they have two female gold medal Olympic champions who broke so many barriers and
They
changed so
bent
many
the curve
things.
of history.
Yeah.
And as a UTM alumni, I'm very proud to be from the same hometown as Pat Head Summitt. I remember when I was in high school, her a relative of hers was our agriculture teacher, and I was in FFA all through high school.
Yeah, Johnny Head.
Johnny Head. Now he was working on getting signatures to change the name of a street out in Mount Carmel to Pat Head Summitt. I think it happened, but Johnny Head was a great teacher. I hope it did. He was very passionate about it.
Highway 12 is called Pat Head Summitt Parkway.
That might be what it was.
Yeah. Just a lot of unique stories within the story. And I'm proud that, and I thank Frank, and I'm just proud that we were able to cover some of those not so obvious stories as well as the obvious stuff that obviously needs to be in there, of course. So,
I think people really love these little gems of information and, fun to share those things, and just hope that this inspires a lot of people to continue to want to know more about their community, that it gives. And I'll tell you what's so gratifying about that. I want to give a big thank you to our publisher, Wally Burchett.
Yes.
Wally stepped in at a time when I was really doubtful that this book would even happen. And I'll tell you, he came to me and said, "How can I help?" And I said, "Wally, really challenged by how we're going to get this book done." And he said, well, I will take it on as a independent publisher and I'll help you get it done. And that's what he did. He took it on. He sold the sponsorships. He managed all the business affairs of publishing this book. He took it all the way through the printing process. Of course, I was working very closely with him all the way. I was the creative director, obviously working closely with the staff. But Wally Burchett Media really is the reason we have this book. Not only that, then he and his two brothers, they wrote a check to put all these books, to put a couple of hundred of these books in the schools, in the school libraries, in the nursing homes, in the veterans homes, and
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, very, very cool and very, very gracious of them to do that. So big props to the Burchett family. So Wally's got some family history in the book I think is very interesting. Of course, his father, Ewing Burchett, was longtime city councilman, very, very much a civic-minded family. Just grateful to him for doing this.
I wanted to share something he did when he was presenting the book to the city council and just kind of taking some time to champion the book and thank the people. The same night that he was given a proclamation and a plaque and such and sort of thanked for the publication of this book, there was another proclamation given that night. Not proclamation, a Lifesaver Award. Councilman Brian Zacharias had brought a student and a coworker of his from Kirkwood Middle School, and this young man who had saved the life of a fellow student by getting help.
I think I recall
another
that.
student who was choking, and before he left, Wally had a copy of the book that he was kind of using just to show, and he went over, and I couldn't quite hear what he said, so I won't quote him exactly, but he gave the young man the copy of the book and said, "I want you to have this because of what you did. You're part of Clarksville's history." And I just thought that was so cool. I just thought a lot of that.
It really is.
Good guy, Wally.
Wally and his family are very civic-minded, and they love Clarksville. Wally was away for several years, but he's back, as you know. Glad he is, because again, he helped not only with this book, this new edition, he actually played a key role in the 2004 edition as well. So same capacity.
Frank, I've always wondered, who is this gentleman? For listeners, I'm pointing there on the previous edition. There is a portrait of a gentleman in colonial attire that I don't
military uniform. Yes. That is the namesake of Clarksville, Tennessee. That is George Rogers Clark.
Okay. I've always wondered. I'm familiar with this cover. I have this book too, and I wasn't sure who that was.
George Rogers Clark. He was the Revolutionary War commander of the American forces in the Western Theater, the Ohio Valley. In fact, he is sometimes called the Washington of the West. He was the man in charge of defending the Ohio Valley from a British backdoor assault down through Canada into the Ohio Valley and a kind of a backdoor invasion. And he blunted that at Vincennes, Indiana.
Wow.
And is known as the hero of the West. A lot of people confuse him with the Lewis and Clark expedition, but that was his younger brother, William.
They're related. I didn't know that either. Mm-hmm.
George Rogers Clark, the older brother of William Clark, the explorer.
Right.
So what a fascinating connection right there.
History is cool. I love history, cool. and that it's just cool. It's cool how things are connected.
Those touch points are very, very close. You know, they really are.
Yeah.
I wanted to note too, Frank was talking a moment ago about all the different locations that have been donated copies of this book. The Burchetts have also even donated one to the Library of Congress. There's a Tennessee Historical Commission. And then all the other local venues,
Historical Society, here locally, and
so it was a well thought out plan to get it at all levels and increase our exposure that way, and just very proud of that.
It's all cool. I thought in particular the retirement homes and places like that were that's really cool. For folks who might be in this book or have relatives.
That's right. That's right.
I just thought that was really thoughtful. It's very good. I love it.
And we'll continue to periodically refresh some of those copies. You know, we have a good inventory of these books.
I was going to ask about how many are left.
We printed 3,250, which is about what we've printed each time in the past 40 years. And of course, we hope they all sell out because we want people to have them on their coffee tables in their libraries. So I think we've initially sold about 600 copies so far. Okay. So I imagine this book will be around for the next 5 or 6 years before we would ever consider a reprint.
So you heard that, folks. There's plenty left. Stop by the Customs House Museum gift shop to get one.
$49.95.
Or online, I believe.
Online at customshouse.org.
Perfect. Are there any other?
There are. The Clarksville Collection, Jody Isaacs on Franklin Street sells them. And the bookshop on Trenton Road out in
Good excuse.
Out there in that Regal Theater vicinity, the bookshop.
I have not been there yet. Sounds like a good excuse to go.
Right.
I have my copy, but I will still have to go look out there too. But yeah, pick up a copy of the book if you haven't yet. Definitely worth. I have a copy. I got Jimmy to sign it for me. Jimmy, have you been practicing your signatures since this came out? I know you've been signing quite a few books.
Signed a lot of them.
I've signed a bunch, and there was one night there where Frank and Wally had me over to the museum and had a stack of them for me to sign. And that was a new experience, but that was fun. I've never gotten to do that before in anything. And that was neat.
Very cool.
And I'm happy to do that for anybody who might want me. I had someone other day, I was over at Building Code's office and someone came up to me and asked me if I'd sign their book. And sure. Honored. I'd be happy to. Love to. And I'm thankful that people are reading it and enjoying it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And along with, we talked about ways to support the museum. Of course, sales of this book benefit Customs House Museum.
Very much.
So when you buy a copy of this book, not only are you getting something really cool for your money, but you're supporting a local institution. So I highly recommend it. Please check out this book. Real quick, if we could, I like to end off on just something fun. I have two things this time. One, if someone were to say, I'm sitting at the doctor's office right now and they have a copy of this book out, I have time to read about one thing. What would you point them to?
I grew up a tobacco farmer partly, and even though this isn't part of the newer part of the book, I've always been fascinated by Clarksville's tobacco history, and there's a lot in there about that.
Sure is.
And I've personally experienced some of that myself. My dad and I bringing tobacco to market in the fall before things changed in the marketplace. But Clarksville has that's one area where Clarksville has such a tremendously rich history. We were world famous for that. World famous for that with the Grange warehouse and all that. And up until the market auction system finally sort of went away, in D.C., which wasn't actually that long ago. We were still a very prominent community for that. So I say all that to say, growing up, growing some tobacco myself and having a limited involvement in that, it's fun to see that history and fun to know how important, and, you drive down Madison Street and a lot of the homes that are older homes that are there were built with tobacco money, know, and it's just an important part of our past. So for me, that's something that I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. Long answer.
And to add to that, there would not be a Customs House building of what we have were it not for the tobacco trade. Mm-hmm. That's why we have that Customs House function here. We would have no doubt had a post office, but I guarantee you it wouldn't have looked like this, and wouldn't have been nearly the amazing, important historical structure that we enjoy today had it not been for tobacco. Now, that being said, we're glad that it's not hurting people as it's been known now, discovered that it can do so, but we still owe honor and homage to what brought Clarksville to prominence, and that was the tobacco industry.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. One fun thing I would just like to point people to in this book is, again, that story about the SS Clarksville victory, because how that came to be, that Clarksville had this victory ship named in its honor. And when this was discovered or uncovered, and I was contacted by the U.S. Maritime Administration and said, we have this artifact. It's the builder's hull plate off of this vessel. It's the only thing that remains of this vessel is this architect's plate. Would you like it? And I said, well, I don't know anything about it. But as it turns out, in our collection, once we started poking around, we actually have the champagne bottle that was used to christen that vessel.
Oh, that's cool.
Because the young lady who christened that vessel was from Clarksville, Tennessee. She was the daughter of the mayor, Bill Kleeman, mayor of Clarksville. His daughter, Ann Kleeman Seitz, christened that vessel in 1945 in Baltimore, Maryland. She brought the champagne bottle in a box back here and kept it and donated it to the museum in 1988.
Very cool.
And so what a wonderful story that And SS Clarksville Victory was built late in the war, and it was used to haul livestock to post-war Europe to help recover Europe, because all the livestock had been killed during the Second World War. So the vessel was used to haul livestock back and forth to over to Europe and then back, and made several trips. It became then the forerunner of what is known as the Heifer Project, which is now an international organization that promotes agriculture and livestock skills to third world countries. So it's still going in a sense.
Wow.
The history of those vessels that took livestock to Europe is still paying off.
That's amazing.
That really is.
What an amazing find.
The crew of those vessels were known as seagoing cowboys.
Oh, I love that.
They were livestock handlers, and they weren't Navy people. They were farmers. They were young men who volunteered to ride herd literally on these boats.
Oh, wow.
After World War II.
That's awesome.
How about that?
I will share, just because we were actually talking about this a few months ago, Frank, and unfortunately the project might not be going forward. Things have changed, but we were talking back a few months ago, you might remember, about Frosty Morn and some aspirations I had for a little museum to local industry in that area. And this year, because of all that, I had learned, I did not realize the industrial history of Clarksville out in the Craft Street area. I didn't know
the original
it was named
industrial
Craft
park.
Street for craft dairy, for craft cheese. I had no idea they had a factory here. And learning about Frosty Morn and how important and significant the foundry was, going out and doing some work at the foundry.
Oh my gosh, yes.
On some of the things they've been working on with our archway over at the chamber.
Yes.
Right.
I had no idea how diverse the industry sector of Clarksville in that area was. And I really enjoyed learning more about that.
That was Clarksville's early industrial park. And we think of it now as being in the middle of downtown, which that back then it was not in the middle of town. It was on the outskirts.
But that and Vulcan and all those things, it was fascinating to learn about because I had no idea.
Vulcan being, one of the early, really significant industrial companies to move and set up here, along with Acme Boot Company.
I had a lot of family that worked at Acme Boot.
They came here in really in the 1929, I think, was when they were recruited to come here.
Right.
The snuff plant. All sorts of stuff. Bootster,
some of those early, no longer exist. I'll tell you what's fascinating, that over the course of these 3 volumes, there have been over 180 sponsor pages in the back. 180, some of them are duplicates, but 180 pages of sponsors. And some of those have been in each edition, some of the same ones. But guess what? Cool. A third of these companies no longer exist.
That's neat. Well, that's not neat.
If you look at the new, no, it's not neat, but it's important that we captured their histories.
Oh, for sure.
Because if you go to these 2 editions, over 60 of the businesses that are in these 2 volumes do not exist any longer.
Right.
That makes me think of David Smith Sr.'s project of the historic placards.
That's right.
On the downtown buildings.
I love the then and now. What it was.
Kind of stuff.
I love that. Absolutely.
Want to give a shout out to the author of the 2nd edition too, Dr. John Butler from Austin P.
John was,
and he actually spoke a few minutes at our launch back in December as well at the museum. But he. Just a great gentleman. I enjoyed visiting with him, and he is genuinely super proud of having been part of the history of developing this book, too. So I just wanted to make sure he gets a mention, along with Mr. Waters.
Charles, of course, is deceased for many years now, but his work set a high bar.
Right.
And it's been followed by both Dr. Butler and now by you. So I'm so proud of the authorship trilogy here, that we've had these remarkable writers and journalists and skilled people involved at every level of these 3 editions. So
I love it. As the mayor often says about Clarksville, we have the best people. And I think that's very true. And you can see a lot of those best people here in these 3 books.
Exactly.
We've been going for about an hour. I don't want to take too much of your time, Frank. But thank you so much for stopping by. This was a great time. I love this book. I am not done reading it myself, but I'm working my way through it, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. To those listening, I highly recommend picking up a copy. But for now, let me just say thank you two for joining me. This was great.
My pleasure. It's been a wonderful journey, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to do some more projects together.
Casey, thank you for doing this. Thank you for promoting it. And Frank, thank you for allowing me to be part of this, and just for being a tremendous friend through the years. You're the best in Clarksville. You are a Clarksville treasure yourself. And I do want to mention too that on the night that we unveiled this book, Mayor Pitts presented to Frank a proclamation honoring his great career, not only in leadership of this particular project, but in his leadership of museums. He won a very special award this past year from the Southeastern Museums Association. I believe that's the correct term. As he's just one of the top in his field, and I think that needs to be a mention. And I hope Clarksville, every time you see him on the street, just let him know.
Don't run the other way.
I will second that and just say that I mentioned I missed working with you at the museum by just a short period. And this isn't to I'm not criticizing your predecessor, Mr. Zimmerman, but I remember hearing about from friends of mine who still worked at the museum after I left, and you taking over and saying he's just such a champion for this place. Miss Sue told me on several occasions you can't talk with Frank without hearing how much he loves this place, and he's such a champion for it. And I've heard that from multiple people. So thank you for being a champion, not just for the museum, but for local arts and local history.
Thank you.
Amen.
Yes. And thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time on Public Square.